All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us today on the industry update. We appreciate you getting on the call every other week with us. We will, as always, be recording this and using the chat feature for any questions you may have at the end. Melissa, I will be passing this on to you to do the intros because we unfortunately will not have John with us today. So Melissa, it's all you.
Okay, I'm going to do my best to put on my John hat. At the beginning, as Hope said, welcome for another week of updates and what we're working on. If you are the press, once again, this is not the call for you. And we are very pleased for the next 3 weeks. My webinar has a sponsor, which is rare. So I'm honored to have a sponsor, but it's being brought to you by Hospitality Health. The American Rescue Plan of 2021 provides greater access to lower premiums and financial assistance. Through PRLA, your part-time and full-time team members can now get affordable personal health insurance for themselves and their families with no employer participation or contribution. Through this service, your employees can speak directly to licensed agents and receive quotes from multiple insurance carriers, access qualifying federal subsidies as part of the enrollment process, enroll in medical, dental, vision, life, disability, and Medicare coverage programs, and obtain non-English translation assistance. So please invite your team members who are not eligible for your employer-sponsored group health coverage to visit prla.org/healthcare for more information. I don't think I have a future in commercials, but I did my best there. So please check out that site for more information. And with that, I think we're going to jump right into things. So federal, which is where we always start. Now what we refer to as kind of that reconciliation infrastructure, what do you call it, bill, is now being referred to as the Build Back Better plan, which is actually a proposal from the Biden administration that was inclusive of American Rescue Plan, infrastructure, and then kind of benefits and tax changes for people. So the Build Back Better plan is currently in limbo. It is about $3.5 trillion right now. The House could pass it any day, and they have the votes to pass it. The problem right now is that the Senate does not have the votes to pass this proposal, which is good because we have a lot of concerns with what is included in the bill. When you have $3.5 trillion and you're not in a COVID crisis anymore, the government needs to find a way to pay for that. And there are a number of provisions in there that hurt our recovering industry as we're trying to get through COVID and work through the Delta variant. So a number of things that we have flagged that are concerns. One would be reducing the small business tax deduction for any business earning over $400,000. That would raise $147 billion for the bill. They would raise the top individual tax rate from 37 to 39.6%, lower the top tax rate threshold to $509,000. Further, because you can't just stop there when you have legislation like this, it also contains a number of other provisions as it pertains to the PRO Act, which is legislation that would encourage and punish employers that do not let their employees easily unionize. We don't have a problem with unionization. This bill goes a step further, allowing fines of $50,000 to $100,000 for each labor violation. So it goes a step further in encouraging unionization and also punishing employers that might not get out of the way for any unionization efforts. We don't feel that that should be part of this kind of legislation. For all of you on the call, the biggest issue of imminency for many of you is they are planning to end the employee retention tax credit a quarter early. That set is up to $7,000 per employee that you have retained over the course of COVID. That was supposed to go to the end of this year. As of right now, in this bill, it's over. So you would not be able to claim that tax credit for the fourth quarter of this year, which of course we know with the lack of the RRF, with the lack of state grant programs that the legislature is not funding right now, that's a huge issue. So that's another kind of imminent item that's included in that bill right now. Now, if the bill does not move, the ERTC would stay in place. So the only way currently at this moment, since this bill has not moved and passed the Senate and gone to the president, the employee retention tax credit does remain in place. If the bill does pass, that would be one of the provisions that would go away that you can currently take advantage of. The House could pass this $3.5 trillion plan today, yesterday, tomorrow. They could probably pass a $6, $7, $8 trillion plan in terms of increasing taxes and paying for it that way. The Senate is where they're running into a hurdle. The two names that you're hearing all over the place is Senator Kyrsten Sinema and Senator Joe Manchin, moderate Democrats that have really kind of thrown their hands up and said this is too far. And they're looking at a $1 trillion piece of legislation. So all of that is being worked through. Over the weekend, I think there was a push to try and get something done. It sounds as of right now that the plan is falling apart a little bit. Sinema and Manchin are not budging. And the president has come right out and said he has a two senator problem, and everybody else is in line with this package. So we're waiting to see how that plays out. The reason that this is an issue, which I already talked about, it contains a lot of tax increases for businesses. The other issue is that until this gets hammered out, or until they decide we're either going to get it done and pass it in some form, or we're going to throw up our hands, RRF, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund refunding, is in limbo. It has been very consistent with this administration, with House and Senate leadership. They do not want anything COVID related as part of this reconciliation Build Back Better plan. So RRF is not included. There was I think it was like a tweet or a post heard around the world last week where some entity posted saying that there was $120 billion of RRF included in this plan. That is not the case. That was never the case. So what we need right now is to kind of put the Build Back Better plan to bed, either in a bill that does not have large increased taxes for our members, or don't pass that at all, realize that will live to fight another day, and go towards what we like to call the unfinished COVID business, which would be the refunding of RRF. PRLA does have a plan in place. We have a letter we're going to be sending to our entire congressional delegation. The reason we have not sent it right now is because the Build Back Better plan, which I'm going to have to practice saying 10 times fast, is kind of holding that up. And we don't want to send a letter to the congressional delegation unless we see a path forward. So we have that primed and ready to be sent as soon as we see a path with RRF and the ability to refund it. We continue to recognize that is your biggest hurdle for 2/3 of you on this call who did not receive funding. We continue to make that part of our long-term recovery. Other items on the federal update is vaccine and testing mandate. My webinar 2 weeks ago, I did an overview of what was contained in that from the Biden administration. The enforcement would be coming from OSHA and Department of Labor. We have not received any guidance, so that has not taken effect yet. You do not need to worry about that yet. There are lawsuits out there that we're keeping an eye on, but once we get the rules out, unless the courts say they can't enforce it, that will take effect. So please stay tuned. We will do a deep dive on all of those provisions when we get it, if you are one of the businesses that are impacted with 100 or more employees. But no news is good news right now, because the longer they take to put this out, the more time we buy to try and fix this and make it better. PRLA's position and our national position has been, let's figure out what the rules are. We don't believe that mandating something like this on business is the way to go. We believe, as I've said before, we want to use a carrot, not a stick, as it pertains to encouraging vaccines. We also know that for those of you that have over 100 employees, anything that has you at risk of losing employees is the worst possible thing that can happen to you right now. The labor shortage is worse than it's ever been. We're hearing from many of you that it's worse now than it was 2 months ago. So we're very cognizant of any type of mandate that requires you to enforce it or put more burdens on your employees. It is something that we're cognizant of and want to make sure that we make as bearable as possible moving forward. State of the legislature. The House is in session this week. Not a lot has been happening so far. We're curious to see what happens with session today. Lots of hearings. Every legislative committee, I joked before, it felt like every legislative committee was holding a hearing this morning. But they are back in session. We continue to be in a place of, I don't want to say inaction, Because if you're passionate about election reform, or you're passionate about voting reform or redistricting, which all things that you have the right to be passionate about, then this is kind of the legislature process for you. For us, in trying to get other provisions done, COVID-related provisions, good government, good business provisions, the legislature isn't all that interested in that right now, and we're continuing to try to navigate through that. Of interest, it will be in the legislative update today, is the National Conference of State Legislators has put together an awesome document that iterates how each state has spent their American Rescue Plan fund. So by August 31st, every state had to submit to the federal government, you gave me $5 billion, this is how we spent it. So of note on Pennsylvania's report on how they spent it, it comes right out and says $3.8 billion is just sitting in the rainy day fund to be used for future general uses. So we're going to be using that and highlighting that with the legislature, that what is a more important use of these funds than bringing our economy back, helping our businesses get through the winter, and prioritizing the recovery of the second largest, arguably first largest industry in Pennsylvania. To that end, last week, the legislature did extend those emergency waivers. Don't get excited. This really doesn't apply to our industry. It has to do a lot with the healthcare provisions, the ability for streamlined licensing provisions, things like that. But we are using that as an example, going down to House Bill 1154, of the legislature last week extended those waivers until March of 2022. There's no reason why the legislature cannot move legislation that helps the recovering industry, inclusive of House Bill 1154, but going even further as it pertains to our tourism industry and dedicating funds to help that recover as well. And I'm going to go on the tourism front. I'll add a blurb that you can't see after 1154, but we are using, when the legislature returns to session the week of October 18th, I believe, whatever that Monday is, as an opportunity to push the fact that emergency waivers were extended, things were being done to help the healthcare industry, absolutely warranted and needed, but they cannot forget about the hospitality and restaurant industry and the need for that recovery. So for 1154, we are continue to recognize cocktails to go is something you're going to need to rely on going into this winter. So we're going to be doing a push on that. That bill also contains those streamlined outdoor seating provisions, also allows for additional off-premise catering permits, gets rid of some of the hurdles that you have in terms of when you obtain an off-premise catering permits. So we are planning to do a push for that when the Senate and House return. The Senate returns the week of October 18th. We'll be placing some op-eds. We'll be placing some newspaper articles. We will be asking all of you to once again reach out to your senator and urge them to pass this legislation. So we'll be pushing that the week of the 18th. And in conjunction with that, after we have our lodging and tourism call, a committee call next week, we will be moving forward with some of our tourism priorities as well. Pennsylvania is slated to receive $17 million from the federal government in terms of American Rescue Plan dollars. We have been advocating, and it looks like we might be succeeding in our efforts to direct those funds to the state tourism office. So that is one leg of the stool that we want some of those federal funds to go to. But we also will be advocating for additional funds via grant program to our destination marketing organizations, looking at tourism improvement district legislation, short-term rentals, basically holistically looking at the funding issues we have for tourism in Pennsylvania as we go into this fall and winter. Many states are investing, in some cases, tens of millions of dollars in their tourism economy. And for our membership, which is restaurants, hotels, amusements, attractions, tourism is the name of the game, and we want to make sure that's a focus within the legislature moving forward. Tax relief, corporate net income tax, all important things, but tourism is a big part of that, and we're going to be driving attention to that. House Bill 1819, I wanted to flag this because this is something that we've been hearing from many of you as it pertains to the search for work requirement. It's sponsored by Representative Labs. It is expected to get second consideration in the House today. I want to call it clarifying because this was actually always the rule, except it was never really told to anybody that it was always the rule. This will clarify the fact that if you have somebody who applies for a job, you schedule them for an interview and they never show up, which we're hearing from you more and more that this is becoming an issue. It would clarify and add to the form that you fill out saying that this person did not show up and it is actually a violation of the their unemployment compensation. So it would direct and clarify the fact that that is considered a violation. Right now, you can absolutely fill out the form stating that you offered somebody a job and they didn't take it and kind of fill it in there. But this would clarify that form and add a line to allow you to do that. Is this going to solve the worker shortage? No. But it will provide a better avenue for employers to be able to flag those people that are applying for jobs and just using it to check a box on the work search requirement without actually showing up and interviewing for the job. So that legislation we are hoping to get done within the next month or two. Like I said, is it going to solve the problem? No, but it makes life a little bit easier for those of you that are really running into this issue with your businesses right now. And then don't get excited because nothing's happening right now, but there's been a lot of media this week about legislation to make recreational marijuana legal. We don't see anything happening with this right now, but it's certainly something that PRLA is going to be keeping a close eye on. It's something that we want to navigate carefully as it applies to enforcement and employment. And how that impacts your operations. But right now, that is not a bill that we see going anywhere within the near future or short, long-term future. But legislation is moving, and it is bipartisan legislation. It is being sponsored by two Republicans and some Democrats, which means that it's getting a little bit more traction. So this will probably become one of our top policy issues within the association as we move into another legislative session in 2023. Local update. The good news is that there's less mitigation, more vaccination. So we're continuing to see that at the local level, especially as it pertains to Philadelphia and Allegheny County. Case counts are decreasing. Hospitalizations are going down, not as much as we'd like, but they are going down. And we're continuing to see government say, we need to mandate vaccinations or mandate testing, as opposed to saying, let's shut down businesses, which we know didn't work when they did that last year. So we're continuing to see that's the path that government is taking. We're continuing to see case counts decrease. We are going to continue to stay up at night worrying about any other variants that come our way that lead to an increase in tests and cases. We're going to be keeping a close eye as it pertains to booster shots for those that are vaccinated. We're seeing some new data after 6 months. Some of the vaccines are less effective, and we want to make sure that we're staying on top of that. But the focus right now continues to be in our local municipalities and within the state, less mitigation and more vaccination. And to that end, we will be welcoming the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development to my webinar in 2 weeks for them to provide an update on their vaccine efforts and how restaurants and the hospitality industry can get more involved if you want to, in terms of pushing and advocating for vaccines. It's totally optional, but we want to make sure that for those of you that are passionate about this or it's important, you have that opportunity and resources available to you. Philadelphia, they're back and they're introducing legislation, and it's not legislation that is keeping me up at night, which is a nice reprieve. So I think Zach and I are going to enjoy that while we can. But in Philadelphia, we have 2 pieces, actually 3 technically pieces of legislation that we're paying attention to and involved in. One is the third-party delivery fee cap. That is legislation that would take that 15% cap that was put in place during COVID and make it permanent. We're seeing in many cities where this cap has been made permanent, lawsuits are occurring. So we're keeping a close eye on that as it pertains to the legislation. It doesn't do our members and friends in Philadelphia any favors. If we make the cap permanent, it gets struck down in a lawsuit and your fees and rates for third-party deliveries shoot back up to 40%. So we really want to make sure that this legislation helps the industry as a whole long-term instead of short-term, and then things go back to a terrible place like they were before this legislation was first passed. Second, in Philadelphia, which is going to be key, is outdoor seating has literally been the lifesaver for our restaurants in the city of Philadelphia. And that's because the city streamlined the application process and approval process for outdoor seating. Those streamlined processes are slated to end December 31st of this year. And if you are one of my friends from Philadelphia, you are very familiar that if you would like a sidewalk cafe without making these changes permanent, you literally have to pass a piece of legislation through city council to have a sidewalk cafe. So the process and issue before was only those that were politically connected could really utilize these spaces. This legislation creates a standardized process across the entire city for restaurants that want to utilize those outdoor spaces. And we're seeing this across the country. COVID did a lot of terrible things, but one of the good things it did was it made cities and municipalities all across the country look at outdoor seating and recognize that it can be done safely and responsibly in a streamlined fashion that customers love, businesses love. It encourages kind of that outdoor experience that's really becoming part of the travel and tourism agenda right now. So we will be working very hard to get that legislation passed. Like I said, it would create a permanent streamlined process. So you literally would not have to pass legislation to put a table and 2 chairs outside of your restaurant. For my Philadelphia members, please stay tuned. An action alert will be going out this afternoon as it pertains to outdoor seating. We really need your help with some key council members, Council President Clark, Councilman Squilla, Councilwoman Bass, are all votes that we really need to look at and encourage them to support this legislation. So we're going to be doing a hard push to get that across the finish line in the coming weeks so we can continue to have that amazing outdoor experience continue in Philadelphia. And if I have any of my friends from any other municipalities that would like to explore this type of legislation, we're happy to work with you on that as well. And I think, Hope, do you want to do this or I can do it? It's up to you, because I think I do the next 2.
I can do this. Oh, well, the next one is about the webinars. I'll tap you in for the webinars. How about that? Okay.
Great.
And sorry, I coughed on your webinar. I didn't realize that my mute was off. Anyway, so we're finishing up our golf season, our golf outing season. Next week, Women in Hospitality is going to be hosting a golf clinic. It's actually sold out, but for those of you that are registered, I hope you have a great time getting some tips on golfing tips at the country club. And then Central Chapter which is not sold out, Central Chapter golf outing will be happening at Hershey Country Club. So please go to our website and get a foursome in there. It's a very fun day, reasonably priced golf with a really great dinner from the ACF chefs and the students, some students that are cooking. We do have some chapter events coming up. They are all Zoom meetings through the end of this month, with the Bucksmont chapter having a 5K race, which will be benefiting our educational foundation. So the scholarship and the HARP relief fund. Next page.
Okay, back at me. I do want to flag for my members that are in the Bucksmont chapter. We were supposed to have a legislative roundtable tomorrow at 2 o'clock. It turns out that there's a legislative retreat and the governor is visiting the area. So we were very short on legislators participating, and we heard from a number of legislators who said, I would love to be there, but I can't. So in an effort to make sure that our members can participate and interact with their legislators and our legislators can be there, we will be moving that roundtable to the beginning of 2022. So please stay tuned for that to be rescheduled. Some things just to flag for you. One, I want to flag and put stars and a big circle around is the webinar to be hosted on October 13th at 11 a.m. This is the SBA COVID-19 relief programs and services. This is every program and service that is running through the SBA. This is RRF, this is ERTC, this is EIDL. For many of you, until RRF is refunded, EIDL is where you're going to need your funding from. So please, 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 take time to go onto that webinar. I can provide you, and Hope and all the staff here can provide you with basics about these programs, but the SBA is administering them and they can provide the details that you need. So please register for that webinar on our website and make sure you join it so you can learn about all of the details and have questions answered that we are not able to answer for you internally. And then of course, we will be back. It'll actually be on the 20th. So ignore that 10/22 date for my industry update. I will be back on the 20th. And like I said, we'll have a special guest from the Department of Community and Economic Development. And then we have some others coming up actually today at 2 o'clock, Employee Retention Tax Credit Restaurant Update from the National Restaurant Association. And then on the 21st, a Sustainability Digital Dialogue. But please, like I said, make sure you register for that SBA webinar next week.
Do you want me to do this one or you got it?
Let me just keep on rolling with it.
Okay, you're on
it. So I feel I'm John. This is so exciting and terrifying all at once. PA Tourism Summit for my tourism friends. Please, we're so excited to see you in person on October 19th to the 21st at the Hilton in Harrisburg. It's titled Get Back on the Road. It's going to be an awesome 2-day conference as it pertains to everything travel and tourism. You will be able to connect with your peers, talk about recovery efforts, get updates on the economy, hear from me, which, why wouldn't you want to hear more from me? And the Tourism Partnership will be meeting there as well. And there's just so many awesome events that are being scheduled throughout that conference. So if you have not registered, please register. It will be in person, which we're thrilled about. And then my huge push for my travel and tourism friends and every other single person on this call, our annual conference and awards gala is on November 8th to the 9th at the Omni William Penn in Pittsburgh. And if we can go to the next slide, I think we have some more details about that. This is the first statewide event that the association is having since 2019. So we are thrilled to get together with you. And we are also thrilled to have this amazing events, all these amazing events scheduled for November 8th and the November 9th. We have a great kickoff lunch at 12:30 with Chip Rogers from AHLA and Sean Kennedy from the National Restaurant Association. If you have been on Sean Kennedy's webinars, he is awesome to listen to and get updates on. We have the policy committee meeting, which is all of our legislative committees meeting that day. And then more than anything, on Monday, the 8th, we will be having our Spirit of Hospitality Awards, which will be our gala dinner. We'll be doing awards there. We'll be enjoying good food and good drink. And this whole conference, which will go into Tuesday, we're able to offer it at half price, just as an opportunity. We know finances are still tight, and we just want to fill the room safely, but just want to bring the entire industry back together. So please, it's $125 a person. We have a room block at the Omni William Penn. We have great rates there. And then, of course, for those of you that would want nothing more than to hang out with me and so many other cool people, if you have not hit your 365 Club level for PAC, which is personal contributions, if you can give $365 to the PAC before that event or even at the door of that event, you will be invited to an after hours 365 Club reception. It will be a tailgate because the Steelers are doing Monday Night Football that night. It's going to be awesome, top shelf bar, lots of great food, just a great way to end the night, but it's only for our 365 Club members. So we would love if you can reach that threshold and join us at the after party. We would love to see you there. So please register now. And we're just looking forward so much to seeing all of you in person. I think, and this is all you, Hope. I'm not doing this one.
Again, we do have lots of training solutions that are available for you. I'm actually going to put into the chat how you can donate to PAC also, because we don't have Steph here putting things in the chat. Just remember that you do need to get your ServSafe certification up to date. They are checking, they do want you to be certified in your facilities. We're offering a variety of classes throughout the state. There's also remote proctoring opportunities. If you have any questions, you could just give us a call at the office. Eric or I will be here most days to answer your questions, or visit our website for the full schedule. And our schools are back in session, and we are still looking for virtual experiences, but we're also looking for experiences where you could go into the classroom and possibly offer some tours and field trips for the students. They haven't been out of the school in a year. They want to get out. They want to come see your facilities. And the classes are doing really well. They are booming with students in the culinary programs across the state. So we need to make sure that we connect with these students for your future employees. And I think that's it. And geez, I think I'm the only thing in the chat. So.
This might be, maybe one other time we didn't ever have questions.
That's amazing.
So we kept it to 30 minutes. I'm gonna have to like go long in 2 weeks.
Well, again, yeah, the slide is up here again for the hospitality health program. So please take advantage of this or let your employees know about this. This is a great benefit for you to be offering to your staff during this time. I think that's it.
All right, well, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And like I said, we'll probably have a lot more information as it pertains to the Biden vaccine requirements, anything as it pertains to RRF and the Build Back Better plan. So thank you, Bob. I was going to say, Bob doesn't even say anything. I'm really losing my touch. But we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with a lot more updates. Yep.
Webinar next week. Please get on the SBA
Oh,
webinar.
yes, and the SBA webinar next week. So you have something to do in between that now and my next webinar. All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you
Have a good day.
guys.